Uhuru means freedom. My name is Sophia, and I am the membership coordinator here with the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement. We're here in the beautiful Aquaba Hall, the hall that Black hands built. And Aquaba means welcome, so we welcome you here today. Led by the African People's Socialist Party, the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement is a mass organization that was founded in 1991 and is the leading organization in the struggle for bread, peace, and Black power in the 21st century. To join us, you can visit http://InPDUM.org/today and select the membership level that you're interested in. Our community rallies are held every Sunday at 3 o'clock to 5 p.m. You can also visit them at the Burning Spear News on YouTube and on Facebook. Before we continue, we ask that you please stand and join us in singing our African national fight song. The words will be presented on the screen.
Shout Uhuru for our freedom. We are winning. We'll dance and sing songs when revolution's won. We are winning. Africa's best daughters and sons. We are winning. Long live the liberation of our African nation. Freedom through organization. Socialist world of creation. 1 billion strong, yes, we are one. We are winning. Red, black, and green for you and me. We are winning. Won't stop the fight till we are free. We are winning. African workers, we must unite. We are winning. Against white power, the parasite. We are winning. Long live the liberation of our African nation. Freedom through organization. Socialist world of creation. 1 billion strong, yes, we are one. We are winning. Viva Iti, who first set us free. We are winning. Carry the torch of Jean-Jacques Dessalines. We are winning. Coup d'etat, tous les cailles. We are winning. Fight like Fannie Lou and Malcolm too. We are winning. Remember our struggle, always be true. We are winning. From Harlem to Brazil to Azania. We are winning. We fight and live for free Africa. We are winning. Long live the liberation of our African nation. Freedom through organization. Socialist world, our creation. 1 billion strong, yes, we are one. We are winning. Patrice Lumumba's life won't be in vain. We are winning. Keep up the work in Marcus Garvey's name. We are winning. Independent and free is what we will be. We are winning. Africa will bask in our victory. We are winning. Long live the liberation of our African nation. Freedom through organization. Socialist world, our creation. 1 billion strong, yes, we are one. We are winning.
So thank you everyone for joining us in that song. And before we continue, we just want to salute our comrade, Assata Shakur, who passed away on September 25th. And we get that news from the African Diaspora News Channel. So, and we have a short clip to play you for that.
Omali. Oh.
It's buffering. Give me a second.
All right, this feels almost illegal to know, but our windows were so old and just desperately needed to be replaced.
What was that?
We lost a woman who chose revolution over submission, exile over surrender, and freedom over fear. Assata Shakur died in Cuba at 78, but her legacy lives in every Black person who refuses to accept injustice as inevitable. I need you to sit with me for a moment because we're going to talk about a woman whose story embodies the complexity, courage, and consequences of Black resistance in America. Friday, September 25th, 2025, Assata Shakur passed away in Havana, Cuba, where she had lived in political exile for over 4 decades. She was 78 years old. Now, before we dive deep into this conversation, I want you to understand that we're talking about a human being whose life was shaped by the violence of American racism and who made choices that many will judge, but few will truly understand. We're talking about someone who became both a symbol of liberation and a target of state power, someone whose very existence challenged America's narrative about itself. Assata Shakur was born Joanne Deborah Byron on July 16, 1947, in Queens, New York. She grew up during the height of American apartheid, experiencing the particular form of psychological violence that comes from being told you're a citizen while being treated like an enemy. This wasn't abstract oppression, this was daily, systematic dehumanization that shaped every aspect of Black life in America. By the time she reached college age, America was burning with the contradictions of its own promises. The civil rights movement was demanding basic human dignity, and the response from the state was often brutally violent. Assata became politically conscious at Borough of Manhattan Community College and City College of New York, during an era when Black students were questioning everything they'd been taught about American democracy. This is where the psychology gets fascinating. Here's a young Black woman coming of age during the 1960s, watching peaceful protesters being attacked with dogs and fire hoses, seeing children bombed in churches, witnessing the assassinations of Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., and Fred Hampton. The message from the state was clear. Even when you play by their rules, even when you're peaceful, even when you're morally right, we will still kill you. Assata joined the Black Panther Party and later the Black Liberation Army, organizations that understood something crucial about power. It rarely yields to moral arguments alone. These weren't random acts of rebellion. These were strategic responses to state violence. When the government wages war against your people, some folks are going to wage war back. The BLA was formed in 1970 as a clandestine armed wing of the Black Liberation Movement, emerging from the understanding that the state was systematically murdering Black leaders and activists. Through COINTELPRO, the FBI was literally assassinating Black revolutionaries, destroying families, and infiltrating organizations. The BLA saw armed resistance as a necessary response to this violence. Now, this is where Assata's story becomes inseparable from the larger narrative of how America deals with Black resistance. On May 2, 1973, Assata was traveling on the New Jersey Turnpike with 2 fellow BLA members, Zaid Malik Shakur and Sundiata Akoli, when they were stopped by state troopers. What happened next changed the trajectory of her life forever. A shootout occurred. When the smoke cleared, Zaid Shakur was dead, state trooper Werner Forster was dead, and Assata was wounded with her hands raised. Another trooper was wounded but survived. The physical evidence told a complex story, but the legal system was determined to tell a simpler one. Here's where we need to understand the context of American justice in the 1970s. This was an era when the FBI was openly at war with Black liberation movements. J. Edgar Hoover had declared the Black Panthers the greatest threat to internal security of the country. The state had a vested interest in making examples of people like Assata. The trial that followed was a masterclass in how the American legal system operates when it decides someone is guilty before the proceedings begin. Assata was tried by an all-white jury in a climate of intense media coverage that painted her as a dangerous terrorist before she ever entered the courtroom. Her lawyers faced harassment and threats. The conditions were designed to ensure conviction, not justice. Medical evidence showed that Assata's wounds were consistent with her hands being raised when she was shot, suggesting she wasn't actively firing a weapon. The prosecution's case relied heavily on the testimony of the surviving trooper, whose account contained contradictions and inconsistencies. But in 1977, she was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison plus 33 years. Even her lawyer, Lennox Hines, would later write that it was racism, inflammatory publicity, and documented government lawlessness that made it possible for a white jury to convict Assata on contradictory and generally incredible testimony. This wasn't justice. This was political theater designed to send a message to anyone who dared resist. For 2 years, Assata was held in conditions that can only be described as torture. She was kept in solitary confinement, mostly in men's prisons, subjected to psychological warfare designed to break her spirit. it. The state wanted her to disappear quietly, to accept their version of justice, to validate their power. But here's where the story becomes legendary. On November 2nd, 1979, members of the Black Liberation Army executed one of the most audacious prison breaks in American history. Posing as visitors, they entered the Clinton Correctional Facility for Women, took 2 guards hostage, and broke Assata out using a stolen van. Nobody was injured in the escape, but the psychological impact was enormous. Think about the planning, the courage, the absolute commitment required to pull off something like that. These weren't random criminals. These were revolutionaries who understood that their comrade was being held as a political prisoner and that the system would never deliver justice. They chose direct action over legal appeals. For the next 5 years, Assata lived as a fugitive in the United States while the FBI conducted massive, militarized sweeps of Black neighborhoods looking for her. They harassed her daughter, monitored her friends, and turned entire communities into surveillance zones. The state's response revealed the truth about American democracy. It only extends as far as your willingness to accept the conditions they set. In 1984, Assata surfaced in Cuba, where Fidel Castro granted her political asylum. This wasn't random. Cuba had a long history of providing sanctuary to Black Americans fleeing racial persecution. From Robert F. Williams to other members of the BLA, Cuba represented something America never offered: the possibility of living with dignity. For over 4 decades, Assata lived in Cuba as a political refugee. She wrote her autobiography, raised her daughter, appeared in documentaries, and became a symbol of resistance for Black liberation movements worldwide. She never apologized for her choices, never expressed regret for choosing revolution over submission. The American response was predictable and pathetic. They put a $2 million bounty on her head. They made her the first woman on the FBI's most wanted terrorists list. They demanded her extradition every time Cuba-U.S. relations improved. They treated a woman living quietly in exile as one of the greatest threats to American security. The psychology here is transparent. Assata represented something the American state couldn't tolerate: a Black woman who had chosen freedom on her own terms rather than accepting the limited options offered by white supremacy. Her very existence challenged the narrative that America was a just society where everyone could achieve liberation through legal means. Every president from Reagan to Trump demanded her return. They called her a cop killer, a terrorist, a dangerous fugitive. But what they really feared was what she represented: the possibility that oppressed people might choose armed resistance when peaceful means fail, that some folks might prefer exile to submission, that Black people might refuse to accept American definitions of justice. Assata's legacy is complex and challenging, and that's precisely why it's so important. She forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about violence, resistance, and the limits of reform. She challenges us to think seriously about what we owe systems that have never meant us any good. I'm not here to celebrate the death of Trooper Forster. That man had a family, a wife, a young son who grew up without his father. Death is always tragic, and the cycles of violence that shaped that moment on the New Jersey Turnpike were bigger than any individual involved. But I'm also not going to pretend that Assata's choices existed in a vacuum. She was part of a generation of Black revolutionaries who looked at American society and made a rational calculation. This system will never voluntarily grant us full humanity, so we must take it by whatever means necessary. They weren't wrong about the system, even if we might disagree with their methods. What strikes me most about Assata's story is how it reveals the hypocrisy of American narratives about freedom and resistance. We celebrate white revolutionaries who took up arms against British tyranny, but criminalize Black revolutionaries who took up arms against American tyranny. We honor the Underground Railroad for breaking unjust laws, but condemn the underground networks that helped political prisoners escape. The difference isn't moral, it's racial. America can only see its own violence as justified and necessary, while viewing resistance to that violence as criminal and terroristic. This selective moral blindness is central to how white supremacy maintains itself.
Uhuru, I'll stop it there.
Okay. So you see, our beautiful Black sister is one to be emulated. And that was actually breaking news to me that she had passed away. So I don't know how it was for a lot of you as well. In line with a lot of what you hear that she's gone through in her life, it is in line with our 14-point platforms that we have here under the International People's Democratic Uhuru movement. And the one that we're going to be focusing on today out of the 14-point platform is point number 12, where it states that we want an end to the vicious, self-serving US and Western European political, economic, and military interference in the affairs of Africa and African people throughout the world. So just like here, had we had that, she could have still lived her life here and in peace. We believe that that African people in Africa and elsewhere have a right and responsibility to solve our own problems, free from the unwanted and self-serving interference of US and Western imperialists. We believe that the US and Western imperialists interfere in the affairs of our people, and it is designed to maintain the continuation of the theft of our human and material resources and our oppression and impoverishment. We believe that African people must be free to organize and struggle to an end to colonialism and neocolonialism without the interference of the US and Western imperialism, which supports the neocolonialism and colonialism in Africa. The US and elsewhere, and which has deposed progressive and revolutionary African leaders and replaced them with neocolonial stooges. So with that being said, we're going to go into the main idea of this point number 12, which is that African people around the world have the right and responsibility to solve our own problems. If we're left alone, we can find the solutions that we need, so long as there's no interference. And you've seen us do that throughout the years, different areas that we've done that in here in the United States, as well as in Africa. When we're left alone, we will come up with our own solutions. And then you see them coming in many times to destroy what we've worked to build. Imperialist interference into the affairs of African people is designed to maintain the continuation of the theft of our human and material resources and maintain our oppression. So you see those in type of things where when we start to do for ourselves, they figure out a way to get us back to where our resources, whether it's our labor and all of that, help to increase the wealth of their families and take us away from our families. That's one way in which they do that. And then point number 3 is we have the right to be free to organize and struggle for an end to colonialism and neocolonialism without imperialism intervention. And then the 4th one is that the US has overturned revolutionary African leaders and replaced them with neocolonialists. So we see a lot of people out here that have a Black face on, but they're working for the US and the colonialists and not in our interest of the people that they look like. So our discussion questions for today: US and Western interference in the affairs of African people are designed to and when I ask the question, you can just raise your hand and I'll point you out and you can give the answer. US and Western interference in the affairs of African people is designed to provide humanitarian aid to Africa, B, maintain the theft and oppression and impoverishment of African people, C, promote democracy and free enterprise, or D, all of the above. Does that stand out to anyone? Go ahead, James. B, maintain the theft and oppression of an impoverished African people. And then number E. Thank you, dear. And then 2, who has the right and responsibility to solve African people's problems? A, the US government, B, China, C, Bono and Angelina Jolie, or D, African people? Lonnie? D or B? Okay, D, African people. So yes, African people, we have the responsibility to solve our own problems, which is one of the reasons we're here today. So how has the US and Western imperialists responded to revolutionary African leaders historically? A, by deposing them and replacing them with neocolonial stooges. B, supporting them with funds and weapons. C, throughout an isolationist position and not intervening at all, or D, all of the above? You said D? D as in dog?
Yes.
Okay, it would be nice. I wish they would support us with funds and weapons. But it's gonna be A for deposing them and replacing them with neo-colonial stooges. That's the way that they've responded historically to us. So I want to thank you for that. Next up, to give us a little bit more entertaining and get you away from my humdrum, I'm going to bring up Gregory Reed for our culture for today.
All right.
I mean.
By God, brothers and sisters, comrades. I just left down there at the Tower Grove Park, and that's quite an event going on. Uhuru has its bakery, has a booth up. The food is delicious, and sales were going strong when I left. I was really glad. And it was really hard. It just made you feel good when you saw the various folks in our organization working together to put on an event. I mean, the Solidarity Committee, Nina, InPDUM, folks were working together, some new volunteers had come in. So it was really, really a very positive experience, and one that I'm sure that we're going to continue to build upon. Today, I just happened to grab a folk piece from one of our members, Ricky Connors, who wrote a piece, and it kind of caught my attention. I figured I would just kind of share it with you quickly. It's called, for all you computer geeks, The Worker and the Seed Phrase. Now, I just recently found out what the heck a seed phrase was. And so you computer geeks, you know that you can transfer Bitcoins and all that kind of stuff through these big, long, complicated formulas and stuff. Now, I'm going to leave it to y'all to really explain it to the rest of the world. However, two men were working together, Brother Man and his companion, and it was they were down there trying to clean up this space and make them $1 or $2. And Brother Man looked down and said, "Oh, shucks, I think my ship has finally come in. I found somebody's seed phrase." And judging by the look of the silver case and the old paper on it, I think it's cryptocurrency. Oh my goodness. Well, the companion said, "Oh, wait a minute, brother. We're here working together. And I'm the one that told you about this job. So don't say that I think my ship has come in and I found someone's seed phrase. That's not the whole story." Brother Man looked at him and said, "Oh, you really? And just what is the whole story?" Well, the companion said, "Well, look, man, I gave you $5 for gas. You should say that our ship has come in and that we found someone to seed phrase and how lucky we are. I know it's finders keepers, but I'm here also. I'm working right beside you. We should share the good and the bad. I will share with you." Brother Man said, "No, you wouldn't. I don't believe that for a moment. You are trying to trick me out of my loop, and I'm not going for it. I'm keeping it all. Like you said, finders, keepers, and losers, weepers." Well, the uh, his companion couldn't believe it, and Brother Man was jumping up and down. "I'm rich. I'm rich. Look at this crypto going into my wallet. Oh shucks." The companion said, "You don't deserve all that alone. You should share it with me, since I'm the one that told you about this job, and I gave you $5 for gas. Pause that transaction and let me get some." No, said Brother Man. You must be crazy. You can't pause a digital transaction. I'm not giving you anything. But I tell you what, I'll hire you to finish this job. So go ahead and start cleaning up. Well, just about the time that Brother Man had all that cryptocurrency coming into his phone, the phone started to vibrate. And alarms started to go off. And he came across his phone, said, "Stand by for arrest. This is the FBI on the way to this GPS location." A second later, they heard helicopters and stuff flying over that. And the first man said, "Oh my goodness." Brother Man said, "How did they get here so fast? Both our lives are ruined if they find this silver case and cell phone on us. What are we going to do? Let's just tell them that whoa, what do you mean? What are we going to do?" No, my friend. It wasn't hours when a moment ago. So I'm sticking to the story. That's yours. That's your seed case. I got my hands up. I'm coming out. Don't shoot. Brother Man, there was a little moral to that story, of course. And it goes that we cannot expect anyone to share our misfortune unless we are willing to share our good fortune also. Bye, Donnie.
I don't know about you, but I always enjoy when he comes up here with his tales of stories. They're so enjoyable, and then they always have a meaning that can stick with you too. And that's one of the things I've always learned is, for me, I'm a visual learner, or I have to have something that I can leave with. And with the stories that he tells, it always gives me something that I can think on, whether it's being able to count on my fingers and remember something, or, think about the animals that he has in his stories that leave me with something that I can remember that story by and remember the principles behind it. So that's one of the reasons I think a lot of times those type of stories are told, so that it's easy to recall the principles that are behind them. And I really appreciate that, because that's one of the ways that we used to learn a lot of things, and we could teach things to people of all ages. So thank you for those. And at this time, we're going to be talking about counter domestic terrorism and organized political violence. I'll be bringing up our chairman, Mr. Omali Yeshitela. All of the wonderful things he's done. Looking forward to hearing this message and kind of seeing how this all ties in with a lot of the stuff that we're just experiencing now. It's a lot going on in this world, and it's always been stuff going on when you look at, how we've been. So working towards an end to that. And for some reason, I don't know if other people are noticing it, but for me personally, it just seems like there's some kind of shift that's going on, and things are starting to move more in our favor and more in a direction that you can kind of see a future. So we're going to bring him up. Omali Yeshitela.
Thank you so much, dear sister. I want to really express my appreciation to all of you who were able to come out. As you can see, there are a lot of people who are not here today. People are involved in other aspects of the work, and a lot of people are traveling, but I thought it was extremely important to get here. But first of all, I would like, if you would, let's share a brief moment of silence for Comrade Sister Assata Shakur. She was an extraordinary, I cannot overstate her significance as a part of the Black Revolution of the 1960s, of course, but she represented a revolutionary trajectory that oppressed people have been on for many, many years, many more years than the 1960s. She is a force whose participation crystallized in the 1960s at a very historical moment. The 1960s was a time when revolution was the main trend in the entire world. It was happening everywhere, all around the world. Revolution was occurring, and it was occurring right here in this country as well. And Assata Shakur was an extraordinary example of that. Also, I think it's important to mention the heroic revolutionary government of Cuba. Cuba has been there for our revolution for a long time. You heard, I think, referenced in the video that we just saw a moment ago, Comrade Robert Williams, who was in North Carolina. He was a former Marine who became the head of the NAACP in North Carolina. And the women were being terrorized. Africans were being terrorized in this place. And the women approached the men and said that you're going to have to do something. You just can't allow these things to continue to happen to us and happen to the women, et cetera. So Robert Williams, relying on his military training, among other things, initiated the founding of a rifle club. And created armed guards who would patrol the community and look out for the people. And his stance is something that offended the NAACP to such an extent that they kicked him out of the presidency of the NAACP. But it was an extraordinary stance that he took, and it resulted finally in him being attacked by the Klan and a whole bunch of other white folk there, and him defending himself. And ironically, there were some white people who were being endangered that he had rescued that became a part of the narrative that he was somehow kidnapping white people. So he ended up having to escape. And he went first to Cuba. And in Cuba, the Cuban government, he talked to the Cuban government and warned them to the position of initiating a radio station that broadcast directed to African people in this country. It's called Radio Free Dixie. And Robert Williams was the person who led that effort, and he was broadcasting on a regular basis. And they were unable to block the broadcast. And so he was a thorn in their side for a while. His wife, Mabel, was also a really extraordinary force who stood there with him. He wrote the pamphlet book called Negroes with Guns, and advocated in no uncertain terms that African people had a responsibility to defend ourselves with arms when necessary. He ended up moving to Vietnam, to China. In fact, he said, when I talked to him, he said the first time he ever felt illiterate was when he was in Vietnam, because he couldn't understand anything, street signs, nothing while he was there. But the Vietnamese, he said, talked to him and said often about, why do you stay there? Talking about in America, why don't you go home? Talking about Africa. And while that might sound unusual, you should know that Ho Chi Minh, who was characterized as the father of the Vietnamese revolution, the Vietnamese nation, if you will, is someone who also was a follower of Marcus Garvey. He attended meetings in New York, Garvey at Garvey meetings and senates and what have you. And he actually wrote, you can Google this, he wrote a piece about the lynchings and terror inflicted on African people here in this country. And so Robert Williams was able to get Chairman Mao Zedong while he was in China to write something in defense of African people who are here as well. So he was an important figure. And Cuba opened the door and not only supported Williams, but there were others who were refugees from terror and US justice who ended up in Cuba. And Cuba, there were often attempts to get the US government, Cuban government, to turn Assata over to the United States. In fact, Barack Hussein Obama actually told the Cuban government that if they gave up Assata, that the United States would be willing to get rid of the sanctions that they were using to starve the Cuban people in order to force the Cubans to submit to their will. And the Cubans refused to do that. So I just wanted to acknowledge both Comrade Assata and Cuba for its heroic stance of solidarity with our struggle. And I could say more about Cuba, of course. Some of you know that the Cubans fought major battles in Africa that helped to crush the South African army during the era of apartheid. And of course, there was the magnificent Che Guevara, who was Argentine, but who was grounded in Cuba, who was a part of the Cuban Revolution and attempted to extend the revolutionary project to Africa itself. He tried to initiate in Africa entire continental-wide guerrilla struggle. Of course, he did not succeed, and he ended up dying in Bolivia. But I just wanted to say that. And if you would, just a few seconds to remember our dear sister, comrade Assata Shakur, extraordinary revolutionary, extraordinary lover of freedom, an extraordinary lover of African people. Salute. Uhuru. If you would, bear with me. I would like to share this with you. I don't know how many of you have seen this. It is a national security presidential memorandum. Is there anyone here who has seen it? Okay, most of you have not seen it. This was from September 25th. National security presidential memorandum /NSPM-7, memorandum for the Secretary of State, the Secretary of the Treasury, the Attorney General, the Secretary of Homeland Security. Subject: countering domestic terrorism and organized political violence. By the authority invested in me as President of the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, I hereby direct the following. Section 1, domestic terrorism and organized political violence. Heinous assassinations and other acts of political violence in the United States have dramatically increased in recent years. Even in the aftermath of the horrifying assassination of Charlie Kirk, some individuals who adhered to the alleged shooter's ideology embraced and cheered this evil murder while actively encouraging more political violence. This was preceded by the 2024 assassination of a senior healthcare executive and the 2022 assassination attempt against Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Two separate assassination attempts against my own life in less than 3 months took place during the 2024 presidential election cycle. Riots in Los Angeles and Portland reflect a more than 1,000% increase in attacks on U.S. immigration and customs enforcement, ICE, officers since January 21st, 2025, compared to the same period last year. just yesterday, which would have been September 24th, a shooting targeting an ICE facility in Dallas resulted in multiple casualties. Separate anti-police and quote-unquote criminal justice riots have left many people dead and injured. Oh, you have it there. And inflicted over $2 billion in property damage nationwide. This political violence is not a series of isolated incidents and does not emerge organically. Instead, it is a culmination of sophisticated organized campaigns of targeted intimidation, radicalization, threats, and violence designed to silence opposing speech, limit political activity, change or direct political policy outcomes, and prevent the functionings of a democratic society. A new law enforcement strategy that investigates all participants in these criminal and terroristic conspiracies, including the organized structures, networks, entities, organizations, funding sources, and predicate actions behind them, is required. These campaigns often begin by isolating and dehumanizing specific targets to justify murder or other violent actions against them. They do so through a variety of fora, including anonymous and chat forums, in-person meetings, social media, and even educational institutions. These campaigns then escalate to organized doxing, where the private or identifying information of their targets, such as home addresses, phone numbers, and other personal information, is exposed to the public with the explicit intent of encouraging others to harass, intimidate, or violently assault them. As in the case of several ICE agents in Los Angeles being doxxed, the goal of these campaigns can be to obstruct the operations of the federal government, as well as aid and abet criminal activity the federal government is lawfully pursuing. These campaigns are coordinated and perpetrated by actors who have developed a comprehensive strategy to achieve specific policy goals through radicalization and violent intimidation. There are common recurrent motivations and indicia uniting this pattern of violent and terroristic activities under the umbrella of self-described anti-fascism. These movements portray fundamental African principles, such as support for law enforcement and border control as fascists, to justify and encourage acts of violent revolution. This anti-fascist lie has become the organizing rallying cry used by domestic terrorists to wage a violent assault against democratic institutions, constitutional rights, and fundamental American liberties. Common threads animating this violent conduct include anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, and anti-Christianity, support for the overthrow of the United States government, extremism on migration, race, and gender, and hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on family, religion, and morality. As described in the order of September 22, 2025, designating Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization, the groups and entities that perpetuate this extremism have created a movement that embraces and elevates violence to achieve political outcomes, including justifying additional assassinations. For example, Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin engraved the bullets used in the murder with the so-called anti-fascist rhetoric. The United States requires a national strategy to investigate and disrupt networks, entities, and organizations that foment political violence so that law enforcement can intervene in criminal conspiracies before they result in violent political acts. Through this comprehensive strategy, law enforcement will disband and uproot networks, entities, and organizations that promote organized violence, violent intimidation, conspiracy against rights, and other efforts to disrupt the functioning of a democratic society. Section 2, investigating domestic terrorist organization. A, the National Joint Terrorism Task Force and its local offices, collectively, JTTFs, shall coordinate and supervise a comprehensive national strategy to investigate, prosecute, and disrupt entities and individuals engaged in acts of political violence and intimidation designed to suppress lawful political activity or obstruct the rule of law. The strategy shall include the investigatory and prosecutorial measures set forth in this section. B, the JTTF shall investigate potential federal crimes relating to acts of recruiting or radicalizing persons for the purpose of 1, political violence, terrorism, or conspiracy against rights, or 2, the violent deprivation of any citizen's right. C, the JTTF shall also investigate institutional and individual funders and officers and employees of organizations that are responsible for, sponsor, or otherwise aid and abet the principal actors engaging in the criminal conduct described in subsection A and B of this section. And it goes on for another several pages. And I want to encourage everybody here to read this document. I think it's extremely important. And I think it should inform our practice, because much of what is in this document functions, if you will, as a trap. I would not be surprised to see people who will approach you, who will even come, try to come into our meetings and movements to attempt to incite us to do something that's not a part of our agenda, but would justify the government attacking us. And of course, as we know from the attack that was made against us on July 29, 2022, we don't have to, it doesn't take much for them to attack us. I mean, and while people will be, this is a presidential memorandum coming from Donald Trump. You should read this. It's incredible, just in terms of the content. I would read more of it myself if I had the energy. But you got to remember, it was Joseph Biden and Kamala Harris who initiated this attack against us. It was their Justice Department. It wasn't Trump. It was the Democratic Party that attacked us, because the question has never been, there's a movement about afoot. There are a lot of people today who talk about being anti-fascism and fascism is coming and they have to fight against fascism. These are people who can talk about fascism because it's something that generally has affected white people. But they have not been easily won to take on the struggle against colonialism that affects us, that affects the Mexicans, that affects the Palestinians and other peoples around the world. And what happens is with this fascism, as they characterize it, and you can look it up, it's something that's characterized as an anomaly. It's something that's not normal in what they call a democratic society. The way certain rights are taken from white people is not normal or threatened. It's not normal. It's when the attacks on African people are normal. This is no aberration. The theft of the Mexican land is not characterized as fascism. They stole half of Mexico in 1848. The fact that African people have been forced to fight for civil rights and voting rights is an indication that the Constitution, which was ratified in 1791, had nothing to give us, and that the decision of the Supreme Court, the Dred Scott decision, 1857, that said that Black people had no rights that a white man had to respect, is something that prevails even now. So I just think it's really important. People are going to be, you're going to hear a lot about fascism, fighting against fascism. But generally speaking, these are people who, for one reason or another, and sometimes under very radical expressions of supporters of the Democratic Party or the liberals, colonizers, and their struggle against what they would call right-wing colonizers. They're all colonizers. It's like Malcolm X said when he made this distinction between the Democrats and in the South. And what was the other group in the South that he talked about? The Democrats and the what? Dixiecrats. And he said that, the Democrats in the North were like the fox and the Dixiecrats like the wolf. And he said, but we can't, be fooled because both of them are part of the canine family. And that's what we are confronted with when we look at the question of colonialism. That is the birth of white power. So I wanted to say those things, and I think it's important. And we in the Uhuru movement and the African People's Socialist Party are going to be doing a lot to continue to explain this. We will be having forums, things like that with lawyers, et cetera, to help explain the legality of this. And of course, what's legal in any given moment is what the ruling class decides to be legal. And that's the thing we're confronted with. But when we try to take what they've characterized as legal and democracy in a fashion that's designed to hold them to it, so that not with the expectations that necessarily the government is willingly going to take our side, but to raise the contradictions so that people, other people, white people, colonizers who also believe in this, Black people in your community and your families who believe in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights and things like that, will be able to come closer to recognizing that we're on our own, and we have to organize our communities for ourselves and guarantee a future for our children ourselves. This thing is an extraordinary moment, period. You probably know that actually the former head of the FBI has been indicted, that there's a threat of indictment for George Soros Foundation. Soros is a billionaire who is a supporter of Democratic Party causes and things like that. He puts monies into your community to make sure that you take liberal stances as opposed to moving toward the revolution. So they're having articulations about about criminalizing that entity as well. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because when he stirs this pot that he is stirring, there are a lot of folk who are not necessarily our friends, but who he's poking in the eye. He's gone to a hornet's nest in many ways and riling up a lot of forces who that might become problematic. I wanted to say those things and also to help people understand that this is not the first time that we've seen something like this. We talked about Assata Shakur a moment ago. What date did she die? September 25th, which is the date of this memorandum, which is interesting. But Assata Shakur became a member of the Black Liberation Army. The Black Liberation Army was a child of the Black Panther Party that emerged after the government was killing so many Africans throughout this country. And this wing decided that they had to respond in kind. I'm mentioning this because in 1969, the United States government killed Fred Hampton. 1965, they killed Malcolm X. 1968, they killed King. 1969, they were engaged in a horrendous trajectory of assassinations and framing up Africans who just wanted to be free and wanted to fight for the freedom and dignity of our people and for a return and for our happiness. What is there wrong with African people being able to be happy, our children being able to be happy, and a return of the material resources stolen from us over the many years? That's what this struggle has been about. And people have been assassinated and killed because we were making this struggle. But things have changed considerably. I mean, Donald Trump went before the United Nations and castigated the countries at the United Nations for how they were taking advantage of the West, as he called it, and then the white colonial powers, the white colonial countries. This is the kind of stuff that's happening out there. He's roiling these waters. It's a very serious situation. And we have to do our work. And our work is in our communities. This is where the work is. It's in our communities. It's doing the kind of work that Comrade Gregory, I see him frequently when I come through, he's picking up more flyers to go to communities, to educate our communities. We have to bring Africans to this situation here, where they can have the benefit of political education. They need to know about what's happening. In the 1960s, we did ultimately find out that the things that were killing all of our people, the arrest, harassment that was happening throughout this country was part of a greater strategic thing that was being done by the government. It came to be known as COINTELPRO, but it was much bigger than this counterintelligence program initiated by the FBI. The CIA was involved, various arms of military intelligence involved, as well as local, state, and city intelligence organizations involved in this attack against us as well. So it's happened before with this kind of intensity. A thing that may distinguish this one is the fact that this is an attack that calls on the support of the white people in general. It is what Foreign Affairs, which is a publication, a journal of thinking representative of the white ruling class, characterized as a populist kind of thing. We're living at a time where what is being discussed around violence, where in January of 2024, this Foreign Affairs journal that I was talking to you about, it's something that was created by the Rockefellers, along with the Trilateral Commission, which still exists. And they reported how so many people in this country crossing ideological lines and what have you, different political parties, believe that violence is an acceptable means to solve problems. A huge swath of people believe that it is acceptable to use violence to put Trump in power if he didn't get elected in 2024. And another thought it would have been acceptable to use violence to keep him out of office. It's more and more. And they say that in this journal's view, that much of this violence revolves around the whole issue of the national identity in this country, and how I think as 1960, I think they said 79% of the people in this country identified as white. I think they said that some 20 years later, only 58% of the people identified as white. They expect in 2035, something like 54% identifying as white. And 10 years after that, white people will be a minority. That is a problem for them. You got to remember this is a settler colony and that white people are not indigenous to this land. So when you got a lot of people who are coming here who are not colonizers, who are not white, it's an existential threat. This is one of the reasons why you see such policies against immigrants, why they would put troops at the borders, at the southern border, and because Mexico was recently stolen, and Mexico is still fresh in the memory of a lot of Mexicans who live on both sides of that border. You will see it reflected, this thing that I'm talking about now, this change in the population is also reflected in the imprisoning of African people. One of the bases being it's a form of birth control to keep Africans from being able to reproduce. They imprison Africans, they say between 18 and 35, like a third of the African men in this country will be in prison. That's the age where Africans are going to be engaged in reproducing each other. So it's a form of birth control, as well as colonial oppression. So these are some of the things that we're looking at. We're looking at bombings. We've seen bombings of abortion centers. We've seen killing of abortion doctors. And I'm not asking what your position is on abortion one way or another. I'm just saying that this is white people see white women not having babies because that's a fundamental contradiction in the whole white world now. Not enough white women are having babies to even maintain the population of white people that exist in the world today. And that's one of the reasons you see policies coming from this government and others taking away the rights of women so that women are to be kept in their places. And women thought they had won so much with now they can join the military and help kill people around the world and join the police and help kill people in my neighborhoods. And now, of course, what's happening is that their rights are being taken and there's an attempt to restrict them, their activity to the kitchens and having babies so that it impacts policy decisions. That's the thing that I'm trying to explain now. It affects policy decisions, this reality. And this is the basis for much of the violence that we see happening. A significant thing is that when the people conclude that the government or the state does not work in their interests, then people try to solve their own problems. Even it goes all the way down to families where you see that people who used to get divorces now they get axes. I mean, axe and kill, their partners and spouses. And it's just increasingly people unwilling to believe in the system. They consider this is what even Foreign Affairs was saying, that the people have concluded the system is so corrupt, so broken, that it doesn't serve them. It doesn't, and that's part of what gave birth to Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump was elected as somebody who apparently was against the system. Does anybody remember that? And in the 2016 election season, the two most exciting contenders for nominations by their parties, Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders, were Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. Both of them came off as against the system. Remember that? And when Sanders lost the primary, and when I say lost, the Democratic Party sabotaged his ability to achieve the nomination over Hillary Clinton. And when Sanders lost, many of his followers went over to Donald Trump. The fact is that even though Trump was supposed to be the right wing and Sanders the left wing, etc., the fact is people were looking for opponents to the system, and they did not have access to us. They did not have access to us. And so they settled for ones who would promote the system. I mean, as much as people may have loved Bernie Sanders, who called themselves a socialist, his socialism was Walmart socialism. You know, who talked about people earning, you know, $15 an hour over a number of years. You can get that at Walmart today. So it wasn't genuine socialism that challenged the existing social system itself. This is what we're living with. We got to do work in our communities. In our communities, we have to help the people to become self-reliant and conscious of a responsibility to take care of ourselves. And we have to provide the political and ideological and organizational leadership to make that feasible. So I've spoken for a long time. I've just wanted to familiarize everyone with this presidential memorandum. And I'm calling on you to study it. And I can guarantee you that we're going to be having webinars, forums, things like that. We'll be having lawyers and other people who will be discussing this. And because there are a lot of forces right now who are opposed to what Donald Trump is doing, although many of them have been frightened to death. This guy, like I said, he's indicted the damn former head of the FBI. Anyway, this is what I wanted to bring to you. And I bring to you this to you, hoping that in the process, I'm conveying to you the existence of a broken system. When I say broken, I don't mean it's broken because it treats us badly. That's normal, the fact that it treats us badly. I say it's broken because it cannot adhere. It cannot adhere to its own basic principles and what have you. And now it's attacking even sectors of the settler population here and around the world. So I do believe, comrades, that this is our time, that we are winning if we are relentless and if we vanguard up. Uhuru.
Okay, I want to thank you for that message, Chairman. A lot of education in there, and that's one of the things that got me to the joining the InPDUM organization is watching some of the older episodes of the Omali taught me. And I still have a lot to learn. It's a lot that I just don't know, because I remember even as a kid watching the documentary on Cuba, and I couldn't understand why the people in that community were living that way, where they were, I guess they can't import cars and things like that. So they're just keeping the cars that they have alive and, you know, taking parts and rebuilding them and different things like that. And I just thought that was like one of the coolest existences, being able to, you know, take what you have and do what you can with it. And just having that knowledge, you had people who specialize in everything. And that shows you one of the ways that it looks like, for me, now that I'm thinking about socialism, what it looks like when you don't have that interference from an outside party bothering you. You will figure out a way. So I do like that. So at this point in our meeting, we're going to come across for the membership and resources. So before we go on, go ahead. I'm sorry, Gregory.
Did have a question regarding the comments of Chairman.
Okay, we're going to go into comments right after we do the call for resources and membership. And then after that, then we'll go into any discussions that we may have, because I do have questions too. But so first off, today's goal for resources, we're we're looking at raising $100. And we, if we have people online, we have our Cash App, which is $ INPDUM, InPDUM, or you can go to inpdum.org/donate. And then we'll be also taking up a collection here. So if you're online, you have two options of donating. Even if you're in the building, you have options of either cash or donating through Cash App or going online if you want to pay by credit card or other means. And then it looks like everyone in the building right now is currently a member. So if we have anybody online, I implore you to go to inpdum.org/membership. You can choose to be a sustaining member where you pay a monthly amount, which helps us to function and do a lot of the things that were talked about that we are going to be looking at doing in the future, as well as continuing to do some of the things that we already do, which is having our meetings and printing up the information that we hand out to people who are not aware of our organization here. And then, so you can go online and do that, or you can do a one-time, if you just want to kind of see what the organization is about, you can make a one-time payment for as little as $25 and become a member there as well. So, we will go over what we have collected for today. But one of the things that you can get as part of being a member of InPDUM is we meet weekly to discuss what our strategies are going to be for the upcoming week for the Sunday rallies, what the discussion is going to be there. But there's also, if you have ideas of what you want to do in the community, like if there's something you're passionate about or you don't see footwork being done for those things, as a member of InPDUM, you can bring those things to the table, talk with the other members. We can come up with the idea and the strategy for addressing those, whether it be things like jail deaths or different things like that that we want to work on or bring attention to. You see some of the work that we looked at, trying to see if that was last week or the week prior, where they were going out to the community and finding out how some of the people affected by the tornado, some of the struggles that they've been dealing with. So they've been working with the people in those areas. So if you have something that you're passionate about, and that's one of the reasons that we're looking to bring in more members so that we can have people to work in the various areas, because the more people we have, the more items we can address. We can have 5 people working on addressing the people affected by the tornado, vigorously working in that area. And then we can have other people working on jail deaths or whatever those issues are that you feel like we need to address in our community. And then also we have, like was mentioned earlier, a lot of our forces today are out at Tower Grove right now at the festival, tending to our Uhuru Foods and Pies booth that they have out there to bring awareness to the organization, as well as awareness to the restaurant that will be opening up the street and allowing people to sample that so that we can have those once it's open and up on the ground. Those people will be there and available. They know where they can come to get the tasty food that they experience at the festivals. And we also have our solidarity group that's out there bringing awareness to the white community as well. So we do need, so whether you're white, you're Black, whatever ethnicity you are, whatever you identify as, we welcome you into the International People's Democratic Uhuru movement so that we can go ahead and work together to get the work done. Did we have, I think everybody here, do we have anybody online that was interested in placing your membership? Or if you have, if you can, even if you want to type in the comments why you choose to be a member today. Do we have anybody on there that is looking to place membership or has been Kabula? Yeah.
Uhuru checking now.
Okay. Yeah. But again, you can get your membership for as little as $25 for the entire year. Check out the organization, get involved with different aspects of it. Within InPDUM, you can bring whatever skills you have. If you like to cook, we have Caramel Weekly, so you can do things in that area. If you don't have, or if you feel like you don't have any skills, just being able to be present here, bringing, and you want to learn and collect all the knowledge that's presented here, you can also do that. And we have things like even my son can serve food or, help clean up and different things like that. So no matter what your skill levels are, we have a place for you. And then you can have your part in working to destroy colonialism. That's one of the reasons that we exist here and one of the works that we're working towards and creating about a socialist world. That's one of the things I'm looking forward to learning more about is what does that socialist world look like and seeing what how that's structured and what life looks like. So I'm going to go around and see if do we have a count for in office and do we have a count for online of what we've raised so far? $158. There you go. We've met our goal. I appreciate you all. Thank you. And did we get any new memberships online that we know of?
Anything Kabula?
Uhuru, none so far.
Okay. But you also have all day, 24 hours, 7 days a week. So at any point in time, you may not have it right now, and that's okay. We still give you the time to get that information or look at our website, check it out. We have, I believe you can access our Constitution and other things available on there. If you didn't check in with us last week, we had our InPDUM convention where we discussed a whole horde of things and got a new board elected during that period. So a lot of new things are happening here. And then also with bringing the headquarters here to St. Louis. If you're in town, stop on in and see what it's all about. And at this time, are we good for opening it up for discussion or do we want to go through the announcements?
We can open it up for discussion.
Okay, I think you had a question,
Yes, ma'am.
Gregory, you can come up to the mic.
Brother Chairman, you spoke about the 60s and the atmosphere that existed there as it leads up to what we're seeing today. And I'd like to offer and get your response to another period just before that that seems to be a mirror of what we're seeing. And it was called the Red Scare, McCarthyism. And I was wondering if you could share with us when I first heard about it and I was just a teenager when that was going on. And I was kind of confused as to why my parents were so concerned about it. They were worried about organizations that I was getting involved in because they were sometimes considered to be communist fronts and stuff. And it wasn't because they were scared of communism, because they never really expressed that, but they were frightened about the impact that had on the lives of individuals that were accused.
Yes.
So when I read this stuff that you had on there, it's just an accusation. It doesn't there's no search for truth, and your life or your family's life can be ruined. But what do you see as being the significance of the white community's response to these and how it's impacting the Black community?
Don't let me forget to mention the solidarity movement that we've created. But I'm glad you raised that because many people saw the McCarthy era that you just mentioned as a proto-fascist movement. In fact, they described it as fascism. McCarthy was this senator from Wisconsin, I think it was, in the 1950s. And he had come up with a list and the list kept growing of people who he said were communists or influenced by communists. And there was also a moment, I'm not quite sure if it was at the same time, but I think it was in the same period, of the John Birch Society, which was another such organization. And they were targeting people who they claimed to be communists. They ruined careers of actors and other people like that. I had a comrade who's dead now, who a white guy who was a lawyer, And he was a really important civil rights lawyer, even became a professor teaching, constitutional rights and stuff like that. And he was an activist. I really, he didn't claim to be, but I always thought he was a member himself of the Communist Party. But he said that because he was defending a lot of these people when this stuff was going on, and how so many of the white organizations went underground, so many of them quit. And he said the thing that gave breath, that helped to change the circumstances, was a phone call from Ella Baker. And Ella Baker brought them into a movement that was on the ground in the African community, anti-colonial movement. The anti-colonial movement, that's the thing that kept the society open. Civil rights, stuff that we saw happening with Martin Luther King, things that we saw happening all throughout this country. That was the thing that kept the society open, that even redefined democracy to some extent. And so they were unable to shut it down based on the activities of African people, not completely. They were not able to completely shut it down because of what we were doing, Africans in this country. We had no rights at all. As you know, this was the time where we had barely any rights at all. And so you had this movement of Black people, and he said Ella Baker, who was an extraordinary, are you familiar with Ella? Yeah, she is an extraordinary organizer. She built much of the NAACP, built the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, responsible for the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee arising and what have you. So that's the thing. That's the point that I would make. That's what I'm making now, that we have to dig in our own communities, build in our communities. This whole thing, the people who were fighting against the fascism that is being targeted by Trump now, he lumps everything in opposition to his agenda as being a part of Antifa, the anti-fascists. But the thing that kept the society open was the struggle of Black people in this country. That's the only thing. Look at it just historically. Look at what was happening during that period. Look at where the dynamism for democracy was coming from. I mean, thousands of people facing water hoses, children, and what have you. This whole mobilization of African people is what kept the society open. And that's where you saw laws, guaranteeing rights to vote, guaranteeing civil rights and stuff like that. When at the time, when they were moving to crush any rights that was here, it was Black people who kept it open. And that's just an actual truth. And all you got to do is look at the same period that we're talking about and see what was happening, and see how many of the anti-fascist communists and what have you folded the tent. And some just got haircuts and, joined their parents' stock brokerage firms and stuff like that. But Africans fought it and fought it. I mean, we fought, if you just go back to 1954 with the Montgomery.
Yeah.
I know you weren't there. Back to Montgomery bus boycott. I mean, for about 14, 15 years, Africans fought alone in this country. We fought alone in this country and kept the damn thing open. It was we who did that. And we just have to be aware of our own capacity. And the difference too was at this time, this is something that's been lost for many people. This is something that I have been trying to reintroduce, is that at this time, in the 1960s, and certainly in the 50s and 60s, especially from the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, we were organizers. We went into the communities. We organized in the communities. We brought the people in the communities into political life. I've knocked on doors in southern rural areas to just try to get African people to vote. People were terrified. People, you can see on these newsreels how African was out there, but it didn't happen like that automatically. It took organizers, and not just people who went online and said something, or not just people who passed out a flyer, but went in and lived in the communities with the people, organized the people and brought them into active political life. So that was a thing. But we live during a period now where such organizing is unheard of, except for what it is we're trying to do. We have to capture these communities ourselves. We have to win our communities ourselves. I mean, I'm down the street on Redbud talking to these brothers and sisters out there. I'm trying to pull us into like an organized presence. We have to do it everywhere we live. We have to live in these communities. We have to live in our communities. We just sell a burning spear in our communities. We need to write about the people and struggles in our communities. We need to win them to meet, even to these meetings. And if they won't come to these meetings, then meet in somebody's house in the neighborhood. We have to begin to bring people into political life. That's our salvation. We have no other salvation. The wards, all the persons are not going to do it. The preachers are not going to do it. We have to do it on the ground. And I wanted to say that a couple of things. One, don't let me leave that. One of the things that we will be doing here and other places is producing Know Your Rights cards and forums and events to bring them to the people in the community so that, because a weakness is that not that the people think that the state's going to ever do anything good for them, but because nothing ever happens good for us coming from the state. But the people don't know that in theory anyway, you're supposed to have certain kind of constitutional rights, et cetera, in theory. We know that's not the case. But the people have to be given this information that this is what the constitutional rights you're supposed to have. This is the rights they give themselves. They say, we're supposed to have these rights, and then know your rights and be able to dispense these throughout all our communities where we live, especially working class communities. Don't have to be an event. We can even go door to door and give people know your rights cards in our communities. I think it's something that we should do, must do. And even in our own movement, we have to teach people what to do when stopped by the police. How do you deal with that? And most people don't know how to deal with it. And too many people, perhaps most people, convict themselves with the stuff that they say to the police because the police will tell you, well, we need to get your side of the story too. And when you give them your side of the story, then what you do is give them the ammunition to come to a courtroom and say, well, the defendant said such and such a thing, et cetera. And so we need to teach people about how and when we encounter the state, how we should act in those processes. We need to teach the people what to do when the FBI comes knocking on your door, because it's increasingly more likely that it's going to happen. I was down on Redbud, down the street, and I was telling the people there, in the hanging out, that they were going to be sending all these FBI agents to our communities. Russ said, said, I believe they're already here. So there's a presumption in the community that the state's already doing things in the community. We have to bring some kind of political education, organization, and what have you, wedded to that understanding. And so I think it's going to be important for us to dispense these Know Your Rights cards. Because one thing about it is, I'm not suggesting that they even respect that. What I am saying is that people, I think, have a greater capacity or willingness to struggle if they think that this is supposed to be a right that we're supposed to have. If they say the damn government, the Constitution says I'm supposed to have this right, it's not just me saying that. It's not just Uhuru saying that. They're saying this is in the Constitution. And I think to the extent that we educate our communities like that, then we arm them to be able to resist, and the greater willingness to resist if they understand this. So also, you may remember when they attacked our homes and offices on July 29, 2022. I'm gonna ask Brother Gregory, he's gonna tell us about this. He might even make a story out of it. Do you know the issue of the canary in the coal mine? What's the canary in the coal mine, Brother Gregory?
Canary in the coal mine is,
Go.
yeah, back before they had all this technology and stuff, miners would go deep down into the ground. And your oxygen level could in fact decrease, but you don't notice that while you're down there.
Yeah.
And by the time you find out, it's too late. But they would take a canary whose capacity for oxygen was less, and if that canary passed out, and they knew that, whoa, I gotta get on out of here. So that's what the canary in the coal mine got from.
And that's what, when we said, when they attacked us, that the attack on us was like the canary in the coal mine. It was the canary in the coal mine. That was a statement that is coming for everybody, and we've seen it. We've seen it in a major escalation on these attacks on the people and on the rights of the people. So I wanted to say that. I want to say also that one of the things that's different now, because the Foreign Affairs magazine journal that I mentioned talked about this popular movement that has occurred. I even mentioned how it was popular. We saw the popular movement, Republican Party, Trump, Democratic Party, Bernie Sanders, and all of them moved against what seemed to be have been like a progressive kind of thing. But we have in 130 cities, there are white people who are working in their communities. They are in their communities, and some under our leadership. These are white people who are talking about reparations. I saw somebody, real smart person today, talking about anybody who's talking about reparations is either an agent or I forgot whatever else. They said this is from our nemesis. But the reparations movement, and we built it, is to win masses of people again to a consciousness of what has happened to us. It's a fundamental criticism. The work that the government attacked us because they didn't want anybody, I'm talking about now under the Democratic Party, they didn't want any criticism of the government. Everything they charged us with was talking about genocide against Black people, was talking about taking the United States before the United Nations for the treatment of Black people, this kind of thing. And so they don't want anybody, and Biden had created this narrative of him being the head of this democratic venture that was opposed to autocratic entities like Trump, like anybody with whom North Korea, anybody with whom the Biden administration was not united with. And so that was the line that he used. But what is happening is when we were criticizing him, they attacked us because how in the hell can you say that there's this great democracy with all the stuff that you have done and continue to do to Black people? So they say, okay, there's a democracy, and you have the democratic rights to say this. They say, you got the democratic rights to say this. but we're going to attack your ability to say it. You're right, and put you in prison for saying it because the Russians told you to say it. This is where they had to go, and it was a ridiculous claim as it was shown in the court, and as the FBI agents themselves who testified at the trial was able to say, these are views that we have for 50 years. So to say that we met a Russian in 2014 who told us this is ridiculous. But the reparations issue is a critical kind of issue because it is a fundamental criticism of our treatment in this country. And it is not a statement that just because we say reparations, that the white people or the government gonna give us a bunch of money, but it's a statement, a criticism. And the criticism, I'm gonna say this because you know what I'm talking about, Brother Gregory, like the blues is a criticism. You know, if you look at the history of our music, you see like the blues, blues is, it's a criticism. It's a criticism of our conditions, and we don't necessarily say the white man, my baby done left me and I don't know what to do. And it had a certain kind of sound to it, etc. And then you had the movement develops and it begins to take on a struggle and it becomes rhythm and blues. It's criticism and it's resistance, rhythm and blues. And so that's what it is that we're bringing now. We're criticizing and to bring people into active political life because people don't even know what the hell has happened to us. Our people are victimized by hearing stories that we are some kind of parasites on the economy of this country, et cetera, et cetera. We get attacked because we are welfare queens and et cetera, when it's they who've been living off the welfare of Black people all this time, and the people need to know it so that they're not demoralized, so that they can get the rhythm, so that they can begin to resist. They can begin to feel justified in resistance. That's why it is that we do that. So I just want to say that the existence of the solidarity movement denies them an absolute unity of white people. There are forces behind enemy lines in the form of the solidarity movement. That's really, really, really important. And so that's one of the significant things that I did want to mention. And finally, we have to do everything also that's possible to get people to Washington, D.C. And the 1st of November, of Black People's March on the White House. I think it's Gregory who I see mostly out in the field. Is that the stuff you're passing out, Gregory, for the Washington, D.C. mobilization?
I'm sorry,
Is that the materials you're passing out? Is that the Washington, D.C. mobilization material that I see you distributing?
The material we were passing out was for the convention.
Okay.
Yeah, that was Lonnie and James.
Right.
And Brother Nick. We were involved in getting folks to understand what was happening with that.
Good. Yeah, we're going to have to do that for this, getting people to DC. It's going to be really important. I mean, you've got situation with National Guards in DC. They're talking about National Guards in Chicago, where Comrade Kabul is located. I appreciate the mayor of Chicago, though. I don't know if you've seen it. He's saying, don't bring them here. We don't need them here. And I do believe if they send the National Guards into Chicago, I believe it's going to be something. Not from the mayor, but I just think them brothers and sisters in Chicago, I think, would make that a real difficult kind of occupation. So I just wanted to say those things. Comrade Sophia Uhuru.
So as always, a little bit more education. I know I always feel educated when I hear him speak. And then it always leaves me with a lot more questions that I have too, because it's just so much out here. And one of the other things is he mentioned how they kind of put these things before us, whether it's saying that we're welfare queens and things like that. one of the things that we don't get into enough is the psychology of it all. Because that's one of the biggest ways that they're attacking us
Yeah.
is it's a psychological warfare
Yeah.
against us as well. That's one of the biggest things I'm noticing. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that because it's what they call counterinsurgency. And insurgency is when the people rise up to try to get their freedom. So they developed a science that's called counterinsurgency to go against people who have risen up or to prevent them from rising up. And counterinsurgency uses all forms of warfare, economic, psychological warfare. Ultimately, military is the thing that they rely on. But psychological warfare is a real major part of. They're constantly working to demoralize our people, our community. That's why it's so important what we do, that we have to be in these communities. We can't just leave the communities as they are, because if we don't provide the leadership in the communities, the government will, through some form or another, agents and other kinds of things that they put into our communities, or gangster rappers, or other means. You know, we have to be there and provide the political education and organization in our community. That's why it's so important to live in the communities, you know. So I just wanted to say those things. Uhuru.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you, Sophia. That's like psychological warfare, the critical component. Even the
Okay,
movies.
right, movies, the music you listen to, the social media, the algorithm that they have you programmed on, all of that type of stuff has some type of effect, and like even subtle effects, and they do it in such a way you don't even, well, and I guess that's the point of it. You don't know it's actually happening to you. So that's one of the reasons that a lot of people are into, they laugh a lot at us a lot of times, but mindfulness is very important, where you step away from those things, fasting from a lot of the online media and different things like that. And that's something we probably need to get into a little bit more practice of as well, is just separating from it. Even the way that they kind of program the news, like how they put the different segments into each of them, makes a difference too.
Yeah.
So are there any more questions in the audience before we move on to announcements? Okay, seeing none, we will go into our first announcement is going to be with the One Africa, One Nation Farmers Market. We have our final market of the season coming up on October 25th. That's usually our biggest market. We're looking for donations of candy. So if anyone wants to donate Halloween candy, because we usually try to give out as much candy to the community, we'll have different activities so that people can win prizes. If you want to donate gift cards or anything like that, let us know. You can contact me, or you can go to ANWOUHURU.org and /donate if you want to donate anything there. Or if you have any questions, you can put in the questions section and somebody can call you back so that we can get those donations. That's one of the ways that we're present in the community, is through these markets.
Yes.
And I know during the last market, someone had a question of how are we serving the community? And one of the things that we pointed out was the fact that by offering booths that are at an affordable rate, where some of the events that they have in the community, in order to get those booths, you're paying more than anywhere from $100 to $400 per day to vend at those markets. And we have markets as low as $35. So if you're interested in vending, you can also go to, you can search One Africa, One Nation, the farmers market on, do a Google search of that and register there as well. And it's not just here in St. Louis that we do the One Africa, One Nation farmers market. So if you're in a different state and you want to see, you can always search that and see if there's one taking place in your area as well. The next one is going to be Don't Agonize, Organize. This is the Black is Back Coalition's where we'll be in Washington, DC on November 1st at Malcolm X Park. The rally begins at 11 a.m.
Register at
Yeah.
blackisbackcoalition.org.
Yes, if you want to register, go to blackisbackcoalition.org. We have the hotel and housing at the Hotel Arboretum at 1917 Bladensburg Road in Nebraska, Washington, DC, or Northeast, I'm sorry, Washington, DC 2002. So you can go ahead and get registered for that. It's a great way to meet other organizers, meet other organizations that are fighting for similar goals and get partnered up with them, and also to just kind of make your presence known. So we want to make sure that we're pointing that out. The Burning Spear. If you're interested in learning about the different things that the Uhuru movement is doing, get your copy of The Burning Spear. You can go to theburningspear.com/subscribe. You can get a digital membership where you can get a actual digital copy emailed to you, or you get a link where you can go to the digital copy to read it online, as well as getting a paper copy, or you can do both. But you can also order bundles so that this is one of our economic tools that we use to bring in revenue. Sell those papers for $1 a piece. Ask for donations. Sometimes people may give you more. So you can get your the bundles at theburningspear.store and be able to sell those, whether you know people who have businesses, if you want to be out on the street corners like they do with the Muslim papers, we can do similar things like that as well. But you want to get your copy of The Burning Spear so you can get stay up to date with things that are going on, not just here in the United States, not just here in St. Louis, but all throughout the world, and especially in Africa. Then how can you help build the Sunday rallies? This is one of the other things we're looking for people to organize a care move, because I'm not necessarily here every weekend. 4 Feet is not necessarily here every weekend. So we're looking for people who can kind of continue on the different activities that we have going on. If one of us has an event like Miss 4 Feet is hanging out this weekend, and I was supposed to be with them if I didn't have a little one. But we need people to help secure the food, to set up the care move, break it down after the meeting. We have the AV team. So we do need somebody to help, because if you're watching us online, we have wonderful people behind the scenes that are making sure that that gets taken care of. And if you want to learn a new skill, that's a great way to come in and kind of learn those things as well. They do have people that will train you to do that. So you can learn to, okay, and then distribute leaflets and flyers, like we were talking about, getting the information out about the Black is Back Coalition. We need people to help get those things out to the community as well, because other people, like we're talking about, bringing people into political life, no better way than being in Washington and learning about all of the different things and where a lot of laws are made and different things like that. Security for the meetings. If you have a security background, is very greatly appreciated, so that as we're here, and as we talked about before, there's a counterinsurgency that goes on. So as we're having these meetings, there are certain people that may want to silence it. So we want to make sure that we are kept safe and things like that. So we need people to also work on that, to make sure that the people here are not scared away from being here and allowed to express their concerns, learn, and grow with us. Okay, and then we have Karamu time. Today is just going to be some pasta. We have pasta, we have sweets, we have iced tea, we have a decent little spread for today. And then for next week, I will be contacting people to see what you're able to bring and what you're able to supply, unless anybody has any suggestions on something that they have that they want to bring right now. Are there anybody in the audience that has certain things? I know one of the things I would like to see a little bit more of is fruit, and probably some of the vegetables from the garden. So I was trying to check and see what we have over there as well.
People can get vegetables from the garden today as well.
Oh, they have it today?
Yeah, there's refrigerators.
Okay, good. And so we have vegetables today too. If you're watching online or you're nearby as well, stop on by. We do have some vegetables for you. So outside of that, I say Uhuru, and let's eat.
Uhuru.